Customer expectations are rising, and speed matters more than ever. AI agents represent a new era of intelligent collaboration, where humans and machines work side by side to solve challenges faster and smarter. In this session, we'll uncover how AI agents are becoming powerful co-pilots for SAP engineers, boosting responsiveness and shaping the future of enterprise support. Welcome, everyone, to today's live expert session. We're thrilled to have you join us as we dive into another exciting and important topic in business technology today: how to unlock the power of AI agents with SAP. I'm happy to have here with me Dr. Michèle Weynandt. Michèle is Head of Product Management for Service Management Processes and Solutions. She supports SAP's digital transformation in after-sales and cloud operations across all lines of businesses at SAP, impacting over 35,000 employees globally. Her priorities are infusing all processes, customer service management, IT service management, and IT operations management with generative AI, as well as unlocking the power of agentic AI in this area by leveraging existing platforms at SAP, including their data. And now, without further ado, over to you, Michèle.
Thank you, Tania. Thank you for the warm words of introduction. Let me share my screen with you guys so that I can deep dive what we're trying to achieve. Warm welcome from my side to the session. As introduced by Tania, I'll be talking about the agentic AI and how we at SAP bring it to life for our customer support colleagues. First of all, let me introduce to you what problem we're trying to solve with this. So basically, customer support at SAP has the challenge that they're always pushed to leverage further efficiencies. But at the same time, we have to keep a stable workforce, and we have an increasing customer base as we continue to grow. With an increasing customer base, that means that we are increasing the number of customer cases or tickets that need to be resolved, and therefore we need to equip our workforce with the respective tooling to become more efficient and solve a higher amount of cases, even though the workforce remains stable. Together with the AI Center of Excellence, as well as the Harmonized Customer Service Management Center of Excellence, we are delivering the vision that customer support is aiming for. And by doing that, we are leveraging agentic AI in order to eventually fully automate some of the ticket analysis and resolve a case without human interaction. That's really the future vision. In today's vision, we are at a stage where we propose a solution to the human engineer, who then decides if that response should be shared with the customer or if he or she wants to modify it before providing a reply to the customer. Now, what these agents are basically doing is supposed to boost efficiency gains. That means we expect a shorter time to resolution. We expect a improved employee experience. We expect a much better access to knowledge-based articles. And at the end of the day, the basis for it all, we really also want to increase customer satisfaction. If we bring the answer faster towards the customer, if we're able to reply in a shorter time, that does mean that our customers are hopefully also more satisfied at the end of the day. Now, I hope in the meanwhile that most of you are well equipped and accustomed to what agents are, but in order to set the ground for everyone and have a common understanding, let me give you a short introduction of what is the difference between AI agents and a non-agentic workflow. If you have a non-agentic workflow and you would prompt an LLM to basically what you would ask it, you would say, please type out an essay on a specific topic. And what would then happen is that the LLM would start to write from start to finish and in just one single go. So you would get a complete draft version of your essay, and That's it. That's the response of a problem. What happens if you introduce now agents and you agentify this workflow? Basically, you tell it again to write an outline of an essay on a topic X. But what it does, it actually now can reason and act on the different steps and can include tools. What is a tool? A tool, for example, would be that it does a web search. It can write first draft, and basically tells you where you need to consider which parts of the whole would require a revision, or it can pinpoint where you as a human would need to sort of review what it has done. So rather than having a one single shot prompt, you have a complete process flow that can be run by these different agents because they can reflect, they can collaborate as a whole environment. Now, closer look to what the React design means. So reasoning and acting is the React framework that is very important when you talk about the agentic design. I'll show you later in the demo, but there's still a user involved. Also in the previous example, I said, you're interested in writing an essay. So we're interested in user input. And then also the response is going to be provided as an output to the user who triggered the agentic system. What won't go away is that even in the reacting framework, you define the task that you want the agentic framework to perform, and you will still provide it instructions on how to achieve those tasks or what you actually expect from the task. In the prior example, I said, let's write an essay. That's the task you want the agentic system to do. It'll consume and it'll be able to store the stuff that it's researched or the stuff that it considered to write your essay in a so-called memory layer. So you're able to store, but you're also able to retrieve from that layer, making it a very smart system in and out of itself. You will be planning and reasoning using LLMs because they give you the language understanding, capabilities. And basically, that's where the understanding and planning comes in. And we basically plan the tasks and reason with the LLM at hand. And then last but not least, we can action calls with respective tools and also action responses, usually consumed via APIs. Tools are, in the meanwhile, provided by different agents. You would rather consider MCP or A2A protocols. And exactly. Now, without further ado, I think this is sort of a little bit of theory behind what's the difference between Gen AI and Agentic AI, what is a React framework. Now, let me tell you how we tackled the problem. We start with how does a human today resolve a ticket, in our case, a case at hand. So basically what happens is a customer creates a case, a human does an initial investigation of that, plans the resolution and recovery, and then resolves the case and provides a resolution to the customer. That's sort of the flow that you can imagine that a human works in today. Now, what we have at hand with the reasoning and acting framework is that we can enrich the experience of the human with more steps and more technology because they can start agents that sort of do certain analysis steps for them and provide them information of the problem at hand and potentially provide resolution steps as we continue. So what happens is that the React framework is calling different objects. So for example, it first gets a complete summary of the problem at hand. That's what we call summarized case. We sort of check if there's ongoing similar incidents, ongoing similar cases. We check if there's any logs that are relevant for this case. We potentially troubleshoot if article that fits to initial problem. The agents can provide the resolution steps for the engineer. So that's sort of the initial investigation. Once that has been done, the agents can also generate a resolution plan that then the human can review, and then we can communicate this resolution to our customers. So you see the whole process flow has been taken into consideration and has then been defined to leverage the different tools that we have, leverage and leverage potential different agents. So how does the agent design look like, and where did we start in order to make this tangible and be at a stage where I can actually demo this to you today? So what we call this process is we call it agentic case resolution, and in an optimal call it the next best action that we hear. For those of you that are well equipped with agentic frameworks, you usually have an orchestrator that orchestrates the different agents, where you define the resolution plan and you coordinate the different tasks. I said when I walked you through the process that we need to understand the steps that have been taken. So we have someone that goes ahead and retrieves data. We retrieve accurate, relevant, and also timely data. We then have to analyze this data. So we have an agent that analyzes the input that another agent provided them with. You could imagine that you need a query rewriter, right? If the first query did not provide you with the correct analysis, if no knowledge base article was found or no similar incidents or cases were found, we might have to optimize the ask that the first agent did. And then last but not least, we also need an evaluator that decides if the case resolution plan did, and then also provides feedback to the human in order to decide whether he or she wants to proceed with the. Now, I said we started, usually what you do is you really start with an MVP. So in the first version of all of this, we did not have an orchestrator, nor did we have a query rewriter. And when we presented this at Sapphire, we really only had these agents in play. Now, as we continue with the evolution of the process, we are able to include more agents, and we're able to include more tools as we go. So I'm pretty sure that those who are experienced with agentic designs have already seen a multi-agent framework where multiple agents sort of collect information and then the orchestrator brings it all together. That's basically our current next step that we're working on as I'm speaking with you guys. How does this look like from an architecture? We basically have agents that consume the different backends, right? So if I need to go and search through my knowledge base backend, I use an API to do so. If I consume logs, if I need to check certain things, all of this is done via calls, via backend. So that's the different tools. What we also do is that we consume the large language models from the SAP, hopefully very well known to you. We ensure that the logs are then also streamed to the GenAI Hub. So everything that the agents do, we basically record and make sure that the human can follow up with that. We can consume vector databases, so HANA databases where we have the document grounding capability. And we also make sure that we feed an agentic evaluation framework, because as we continue to evolve, we got to make sure that we continue to reach a certain level of accuracy and that we reach a certain level of acceptance also from the users, right? We to achieve a lower customer satisfaction because the response that was given does not meet the demands of our customer. All right, now without further ado, let me show you what the demo looks like. So basically what you're going to see now is that you have here a customer case at hand where a so-called is not active. And what will happen is the user, the human in our case, will via a sidebar invoke our agentic system. So they will start the case investigation. The first thing that happens is that we provide you with the generated response that was already run in a prior run. So if you want to, you can rely on it. If you say it's too old and you sort of want to generate a new response, you just trigger the complete system again. You saw we sort of give feedback to the human as well, that once the agent was triggered or the agentic system was triggered, that it started. We started timer so that you don't think that nothing has happened. And you see here that all of the different traces, this was where I said previously, we basically stream the logs. We collect what the agents have been doing, and we then populate that to the end user. So you have the different agents here, and what you can see is we provide the input as well as the output of the different agents to the human in order for the human to understand what the agentic system has been doing, which tools it has been calling. And this is really an organizational change management measure, because we want to ensure that our colleagues understand what's happening in the background. So you see a lot of agents are running in the meanwhile. You also see a lot of different tasks that are being handled. Eventually, the vision of this is, as mentioned in the very beginning, all of this will become very much automated. At the stage where we are today, we want to ensure that all of our colleagues understand what the technology can or can't do, what was provided as an input as well as an output from the agentic system, so that the human can agree with the steps or disagree with the steps and redo the steps manually themselves, right? I said, if you search for a specific KBA, if you craft a communication and you're not aligned with it, then you as a human can rewrite all of this and redo the steps. So at this point in time, help the human understand what's going on, help the human potentially also redo certain steps and compare their research steps with what the system would provide. As part of the evaluation framework, I mentioned that we always want to ensure that the humans can understand what's going on, that we can evaluate the response against a certain threshold. And this is why these tracing capabilities are so important. If you come from a classic unit testing framework, then this might be new, but this is sort of the new world of where we trace what was happened and where we can then compare the traces of a first run to a prior run. The response that was generated, eventually you would be able to have some sort of what we call a golden data set, where you compare an answer that was provided by the agentic system to an answer that you define as the. With that, you sort of gain confidence that you sort of get to a memory layer that can work. All right, I hope this helped to understand a bit of where we're coming from and understand or shows you what the possibility is. It shows the endless work of how the agents perform. But one thing that I would also want to move over here, share with you is a little bit of lessons learned, right? From our perspective, very important when it comes to agentic AI is, well, there's a lot of people that say prompting is dead. Nevertheless, we still believe that prompting is relevant in terms of you have to describe the agent's work and what you expect from them, and that's where prompting remains relevant. It still is important that you're able to explain what you want to achieve in single words so that the agentic system can perform. For us, really, really important is the platform strategy. So you saw from the architecture design that multiple things come into play. You need the LLMs, you still require the retrieval augmented generation. You need somewhere where you can evaluate the traces. You need somewhere where you can stream the logs. And for us at SAP, all of this comes together in our platform, in our AI data platform, where we can sort of evaluate and make the most out of it. Then I think for us also super important is what we call the golden path. That's really required for scaling, because that's where we are able to move from dev test to production and ensure that we leverage the quality and do not lose anything that's very relevant for our customers, and where we can then also move forward in terms of, software 3.0 agile development. Also, very, very, very important from our point of view is fail early and fail often. I think a lot of people have asked us, where did you start and how come you are so ahead of the game or running with the game? For us, it really has to do with the fact that do not be afraid to start and fail. If you fail, you learn a hell of a lot and you can always course correct and adjust. I showed you a little bit of the agentic design where we started, and in the demo you saw how many agents we already have in the meanwhile, and you can trust me that a lot of the things that we saw there we really learned, but we also only learned because we were not afraid to. And not least, I think something that is super relevant as well is do consider that there's interoperability among these agents, right? So as we progress in the area that we're in today, a lot of things are possible. Many people are working with agents, and you see that the possibilities are endless. If you do not want to sort of ensure that the different agents are talk to each other, that's where MCP or A2A protocols are going to come into play. And that's where you ensure that the overall picture is well-rounded and fully aware. And with that, I am actually already pretty through. So I would want to open it up for questions. First of all, I definitely want to say thank you. Second of all, I also want to make sure that you are aware that there's more of these sessions running in parallel, or not in parallel, but are going to come up. So my colleagues are going to share more of how SAP runs SAP, or what we call Discover SAP. And with that, I think, Tania, I'll open it up for Q&A.
Great. Thank you so much, Michèle, for your excellent presentation. I really listened at it with a lot of gusto. Perhaps you want to unshare so
Yes.
we can, our attendees can see both of us. Great. Thank you so
There we
much.
are.
Yes. So, yes, we have questions. Before coming to the questions in the chat, actually, I also have a question. You said fail early, fail often. Because also one question that always comes from our user group members, if I want to start with designing an agent, how should I start?
That's a very good question, Tania. So thank you for that. In all honesty, I try to walk through the process in the presentation. So I would always start with the process. The process is what you're trying to leverage efficiencies. The process is where you're trying to support your humans. And if you can explain very well what you expect from the agents and how you would sort of describe the tasks that they should do. And therefore, I would always start from the process. And with the many projects that we're running in parallel, this is how we start, no matter which discipline or area you're going to try and use agents in.
Okay, great. Thank you. The first question is, it looks like those second, third of your presentation, looks like those are code-based agents. Why did you pick code-based agents versus content-based agents?
That's a very technical question, but I'm very happy to receive that. So thank you for asking that. Yes, we pick code-based agents because the code-based agents is sort of the highest complexity that exists in the area of AI agents. Why is it complex? Because you have to code everything, but it also gives you a hell of a lot of governance across the board, and you can really influence every single step of the way of what an agent does, and also how using a content-based framework, you might be quicker in terms of setting it up because, for example, Joule has a content-based framework, and you're going to be quicker because you're going to have a sort of low-code, no-code environment, but you also cannot influence certain things. I explained that we have an orchestrator and we are sort of really able to bisect every step of the work that he or she does, or it does, I have to say. And if you use a content-based framework, you do not have that flexibility. So that's sort of the difference between a content and a code-based framework. And for our use case, the code-based framework is really the most relevant one because we're talking about customer cases. So we really do not want to expose something to our customers that has not been reviewed and where we are not in control of the answer that's being given.
Thank you so much. Next question, would you recommend building a new team to focus on agentic AI?
Oh, that's a good one. And I get that often as well. It really depends on your setup. In all honesty, if you have the possibility, I would, because the speed of delivery and the speed of expectations and the speed of technological evolution is very, very high. I think most of the experts in the field and also those that have been in software and IT keep repeating and saying that the way of how technology evolves is the fastest they've ever seen. So if you do not have an own team, it's going to be very hard to catch up and stay up to date. So if you have the it takes care of it, I would suggest to do so. I mean, I said it at the very beginning, this is a collaboration at SAP between a couple of teams. The AI Center of Excellence, as the name says it, they really take care of all of this. And they are the ones that provide us with the platform, with access to the LLMs, with access to the retrieval augmented generation platform, but also the streaming and logging capabilities. So if you have the opportunity, I would always vote for a clear yes.
Thank you. Another interesting question, how do you measure the success of agentic AI?
Very good. This is as you asked the question, where should I start? Since I started with the customer support process, we really have already existing KPIs, right? So we already know what our customer satisfaction is. We know what our mean time to resolution is, and that's the baseline. If the agentic system performs better than the baseline, we know we have done something positive. If we are below that, then we sort of always have to fine tune. That's really the measures that we take.
Great, thank you so much. This was the last question. I would like to offer to everyone that is had tuned in and everyone who's listening to it on demand. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments area underneath this video and we will answer them. So with this one again, Michèle, thank you so much for your really lovely presentation. Very interesting. And to all our attendees for joining. I hope you got a lot of value from this session and I hope to see you again at our next session. With this, have a great day, depending on where you are, a great evening or a great morning. Bye-bye.